Welcome to the Solopreneurs CEO podcast. I'm Carin Kilby-Clark, and along with my co-host Marsha Sheehan, we help solopreneurs lead with clarity and build businesses that grow without burnout. This show is for solopreneurs who've built something real but are carrying more of the load than they want to be. Your business works, but it depends too heavily on you. And deep down, you know it shouldn't feel this hard. Here, we talk about the mindset, systems, structure, and support it actually takes to run a business without sacrificing your well-being. We're not about hustle culture or pushing harder just to survive. This podcast is about stepping out of reactive solopreneur mode and into CEO-level leadership so your business can support your life instead of consuming it. If you're ready for honest conversations, real-world strategies, and a lot less pretending, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Solopreneur CEO. This week, you just have me, Carin, and I'm going to be talking about a subject that is coming up a lot lately in my calls with clients and also just what I'm seeing in general with solopreneurs. So let's dive in. So I want to start this episode with a thought that's probably going to sound a little uncomfortable at first. And that is, there's a good chance you do not need more information. You probably don't need another productivity hack or another business strategy or another 47-tab deep dive into how someone else built their funnel. And I know that's a little ironic coming from someone with a podcast who is quote unquote teaching, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately, especially after the conversations we've been having here on the show around time and burnout, alignment, and the pressure that solopreneurs feel to constantly do more. Because at a certain point, the issue is not that you don't know enough. The issue is that you're trying to build a different kind of business while still operating inside an environment that pulls you back into survival mode. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons smart solopreneurs stay stuck longer than they should, not because they're lazy, not because they aren't capable, definitely not because they need to be more disciplined. It really is because the environment around them keeps reinforcing the version of themselves that they're trying to outgrow. And once I really understood this, it changed the way I thought about business completely. So one of the things I hear from solopreneurs all the time is, I know what I should be doing. I'm just not doing it. And usually there's a lot of shame underneath that because you've listened to the podcast. You're listening to this one right now. Thank you. You've bought the courses, you've watched the trainings, you've used all the templates. You know that you should batch your content, build systems, stop reinventing the wheel, set boundaries, streamline your offers. You know all of that intellectually, but then real life happens. A client message comes in, something shifts in your family. You second guess a decision, you get overwhelmed, and you go into reactive mode again. And suddenly, all the things that you know, my air quotes are up, they disappear under the weight of your actual day-to-day reality. And that's never going to be an information problem. It is always going to come back to the environment. Because implementation is emotional. It's relational. And it's really super duper identity based. So that's why we say sometimes, well, what would $1 Million Carin do? It sounds kooky when you say it, but the whole point of that is the mindset and the embodiment of the person who would do the thing that you want to do. And sometimes that can feel uncomfortable. And it does require us to try on shoes that might be a little too big, but we'll grow into them. And if your environment is constantly reinforcing that kind of urgency, overwork, isolation, and reactivity, it becomes incredibly difficult to consistently operate as that next level CEO version of yourself, even if you technically know what to do. And I think this gets amplified even more when you're a solopreneur because you're making pretty much every decision in your business alone. You're the strategist, the marketer, the client delivery team, the operations department, the customer service rep. We talk about this all the time how you are all of the O's, the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CMO, like all the hats. Everything is, you feel the weight of your business on your shoulders. And when you spend enough time operating that way, your business starts to exist entirely inside your own head. Every problem feels heavier because you only have your perspective. Every decision feels more emotionally charged because there's no calibration, there's no pressure testing. You start to overthink things that probably aren't that deep, but they feel like they are. Marsha talks a lot about catastrophizing, and that can happen a lot of times when you get stuck kind of in your own overthinking loop and you're not really getting some of those outside perspectives that can help you see more clearly. And I know this because I've done it too. I could spend 3 days spiraling over messaging or a launch decision or is my offer good enough or should I pivot again? Or why does it seem like everyone else is doing it better than me? And that's what happens when you're alone with the thoughts. The more that you hear that repeated in your head, it starts to sound true. And that's one of the hidden costs of solopreneurship that I feel like people don't talk about enough. That isolation really does distort perspective. And honestly, the internet can really just make this worse because now your business environment is not just your actual life, it's also the content you consume, the people you follow, the business models that you normalize, the messaging that you absorb all day long while you're doom scrolling. And a lot of what's normalized online is really not healthy. All the constant scaling, constant optimization, constant visibility, constant output. There's this subtle message underlying everything that says if you're not growing fast enough, visible enough, productive enough, then you're falling behind. And Marcia and Tara talked about this a lot in the two-part How I Run This interview just before this episode. So hopefully you listened to that and you felt a little less alone. Because when you hear that message enough times, eventually you stop questioning it. You just absorb it. And your subconscious just takes it as true. And even if it completely conflicts with the kind of life that you actually want, it still can feel like that must be the truth. I've seen it enough times. And you're not thinking that again consciously. It really is a subconscious thing that starts to happen and take root in your beliefs. And I think that's especially true for women solopreneurs because so many women that I talk to are really not trying to build massive empires. And if you are, that is totally fine too. But most of the solopreneurs that I work with, they want meaningful work. They just want financial stability, freedom, flexibility, and most importantly, space to actually enjoy their lives. But then they look online and feel like they're somehow failing because they don't want to manage 40 employees or scale to some arbitrary revenue number. And I really want to say this clearly. You are allowed to build a business that supports your life instead of consuming it. That does not make you less ambitious. It makes you intentional. One thing that I've realized over the years is that transformation rarely happens because someone finally hears the piece of information that was going to unlock everything, right? Usually they've heard it all before. Transformation truly happens when they experience a different environment. They start hearing different conversations. They see different possibilities normalized. And they stop feeling like they're the only one struggling with something. No, we're all in this together. That's what changes people, not just information, environment. And honestly, this is why communities matter so much, not networking in the weird transactional sense. But I really am talking about spaces where you can think out loud, you can ask better questions, you can hear how other people are navigating things, and you can have those realizations that you're not broken, you're not behind, and there actually are other ways to build. That kind of environment changes your standards. It changes your decision making and it changes what you normalize. I can tell you personally, some of the biggest shifts in my business did not happen because I learned something new. They happened because conversations changed the way I was thinking, because someone reflected something back to me that I couldn't quite see for myself. And because I stopped trying to carry every single thought and decision alone. And honestly, I think this is part of why so many solopreneurs stay in operating mode longer than they need to. Not because they're not smart enough to become CEOs. They are creating successful businesses. They are super smart. But because they're trying to become a different version of themselves inside the same environment that trained them to overwork in the first place. And that's hard and it's exhausting. And eventually you hit a point where more information just creates more noise because now you're not lacking strategy. You're lacking the space to integrate what you already know. So I think one of the biggest mindset shifts into CEO leadership is realizing that support is not a luxury. It's infrastructure and it's required. Perspective is infrastructure. Community is infrastructure. Conversations are infrastructure. And no, that doesn't mean you suddenly need a giant mastermind or a huge team of people around you. But it does mean recognizing that isolation has a cost, a very real cost. Because when you're constantly alone in your business, your fears get louder, your blind spots get bigger, your nervous system stays activated, and every challenge feels more personal than it actually is. And that's not sustainable leadership. It's survival mode with moderately good branding. And honestly, that is a big part of why Marsha and I built the Success Secret Society the way that we did, because we did not want another place to dump more information onto people. There's already enough information online. There's already enough information now with AI and all the tools that are available. Information is never going to be your problem ever again. So that's why we built the society around conversation, perspective, and support, and helping our clients stay in a CEO level of thinking because we're helping them experience and stay in a different environment. A place where solopreneurs can stop feeling like they have to figure out everything alone. Because at a certain point, the thing that changes your business is not another PDF. It's being in rooms and conversations that help you think differently and that help you see yourself differently and help you make decisions from a more grounded place. And that's like I think it matters more than people realize because it seems like it's not impactful. I'm just going to have conversations and that changes me. Yeah, actually, it does. Like, having the right questions asked, having that pressure testing, "This is what I'm gonna do, guys. What do you think?" And being able to kinda talk through the pros, the cons, the what ifs, and also the nervous system regulation that people are talking a lot more about these days, but it still feels okay, what exactly is that? We'll have to probably do an episode about that in season 2 because I feel like it's still okay, but what does that actually mean? What do I actually do with it? How do I actually do it? So we'll have to dive into that at some point just because it matters so much more than people realize. And so, yes, having the conversations, being in the room, having that community and that support, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it is actually every deal. It is the deal. So, if you've been feeling stuck lately, if you've been consuming more and more content, but still feel like you're overwhelmed, or if you feel like you know what to do, but you're just not fully stepping into it and you're not sure why, I would love for you to consider the possibility that you don't need more information right now. Go on an information diet. Don't consume not another thing. And that you might need a different environment. So, having those different conversations, having different inputs, having different support, because the environment around you shapes what feels normal. And what feels normal shapes the kind of business that you build. So, thanks for being here for this conversation today. And if this episode resonated with you, we'd love to have you inside our free community for sure and in the society. You can learn more about the free community at thesolopreneurceo.com. And you can learn more about the society at successsecretsociety.club. And if this episode made something click for you, send it to another solopreneur who's been trying to carry all of this alone. I think a lot more people need this conversation than we realize. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much for spending time with us today. If this episode made you feel seen or helped something click, join our free community at thesolopreneurceo.com. This is a space to connect with other solopreneurs who are building sustainable businesses and don't want to do it alone. And if you found this conversation helpful, leaving a quick review helps more people find the show and reminds them they're not the only ones feeling this way. We're really glad you're here, and we'll see you in the next episode.